Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to learn a data structure called arrays. So we're going to see what an array is, and we're going to see some of the occasions that we may want to use arrays inside. So over here, we have our main class, but I believe we have a lot of information inside of this class. So in order to be more structural, I'm going to change this name, okay? So it's called main right now. I can call this anything I want. All I have to do is just select this and right click it to change its name. And of course, if you're doing that with an activity, with another project, you can just close this down and create a new project for you at this point. But I'm just going to change this name by saying refactor and rename, okay? Because there's no point calling that main. I'm going to call these variables because that's what we have covered here, right? So I'm going to say variables with an uppercase V and hit enter. As you can see, as I type over here, it changes the file name as well. So if I run this right now, I will get the same output. But this is okay for variables. Now I'm going to create a new Java class. So inside of this class, we're gonna go and see arrays. So I'm going to name this array, and I'm just doing this to be structural. I could have just written it down in the same variables part as well, but it's better to write it in here. So of course, within this class, we have to have that main function again. So I'm going to create it first, public static void main. And remember, you have to open and close parentheses inside of this main method. And this is the entry point for our Java code. So we need to write it exactly like this with a string array. By the way, this is an array. We're going to see what it is right now. And we're going to open and close this curly braces, not with a C inside. Here you go. Now we have our entry point. Now we can write whatever we want inside of this method. So what is an array? Array is a data structure to store multiple values. For example, you can store multiple strings, you can store multiple integers, or multiple floats or doubles inside of an array. Okay, you can store any data type that we have learned in the previous lectures, so that you can actually reach them within a single variable. Just imagine that you have thousand strings on the internet that you want to download. So rather than creating 1,000 variables for different strings, you can create a string array and then store everything inside of that array so that you can reach it anytime you want. Let's do that. So I'm gonna write string as if I'm creating a string, but at the end of the type over here, I'm gonna put this notation, okay, this syntax. It means that I'm creating a string array. So after the type, what do we write? We write the name of the object, name of the variable, like my string array. Okay, then we can create, we can actually assign the value. But before we go into the values, there are a couple of ways to initialize string arrays or any type of arrays that you may think of. And I'm going to show you every one of them, don't worry. First of all, we're gonna go for a traditional conventional way, which is initializing it by saying new string array like this, okay? But as you can see, there is an error over here because it expects some parameter inside of this braces. So for example, I'm gonna say 3. So what does this tree represent? It represents that there's going to be 3 elements inside of this my string array. It will contain 3 strings. So all we just did right now is to create a my string array and said that it's going to be 3 elements inside of that string array. If I say my string array right now, I can open these braces and I can just start giving out the values over here like this. So the first element inside of a string has the index of 0. So whenever we say my array 0, it means that first element in that array. So in this case, I'm saying that James is the first element inside of my string array. And I can make that as long as I reach the capacity that I have given in the initialization part. For example, I can go for Lars, and I can do this one more time, okay, and I can just say something like Kirk over here. Now my string array has 3 elements, and let me try to write them down. So if you do this, if you try to run this, okay, right click on main and say run, you won't see James, Lars, and Kirk like this. You will see, yep, this is a string array at this memory part, okay? So in order to see the individual elements inside of an array, you have to specify the index of that particular element that you are trying to reach. For example, like this. If I say my string array 0, then I can see James. If I want to see Lars, then I can go for 1. And as you can see, it works. Now I have a variable and I have different values inside of that variable, and I can reach them by specifying their indexes. So this works. And again, if I had 1,000 array elements over here, then it would work fine as well. But maybe you can think something like that. Yeah, I have 3 elements over here, and I knew there was going to be 3 elements. But what if I don't? What if I don't know what kind of an element there is going to be over here? Like how many elements? I don't know. I'm going to download it from the internet. Maybe it will be 900, maybe it will be 1,000. How do I initialize this? Don't worry, we're gonna work on that later on. Right now, you just try to understand arrays are used in order to store values, multiple values inside of one single object. We can do that with integers as well. For example, in my integer array will be new int array, like this. Okay, you can just call it 3, for example, again, and you can add as many numbers as you want over here up until 3 elements, like this. My integer array 0, 50, my integer array 1 is something else, like 60. Let's make 50, 60, and 70 with their related ages, like James' age is 50, Lars' age is 60, and Kirk's age is 70. Okay, so for example, if I reach out the second element, index 1, in the first 2 lists, then I can get Lars and the age of the Lars with 60, for example. This is a good example of leveraging arrays. For example, if I had 2 different sources from internet to download, then I could have downloaded them and just added them in order so that they will coincide with the indexes, so I can get the first index, second index, in order to find the name and the age of given element. Okay, for example, I could have done this as well into my number array. Okay, rather than saying 3, rather than giving out a capacity, I can just open curly braces over here and write the numbers like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. Now I have the same thing. I can reach the same thing over here. For example, if I come over here and say 2, what will I get over in the logs? So if you had said 3, then you're completely right. Why do we get 3? Because it's 0, okay, here, and 1 over here, and 2 over here. Number 3 has the index of 2 because the index starts with 0 in the arrays. So this is one of the methods that you can define an array without giving the capacity first. For example, over here, if I do this, my integer array 380, okay, it would work fine, but if I run this, then I will get an error because as you can see, I get this array index out of bounds exception. It's actually out of bounds because I have a restriction over here. I specified the capacity as 3. Now I should put 3 elements inside of this array. If I put the fourth one, as you can see, it gives me an array index out of bounds exception. So if we change this to be 4, I can just come over here and add the fourth element as well, like this, and I won't get any errors after all. So this was an introduction to arrays. We will continue learning about new kind of arrays in the next lecture.